Hey guys, Swim here, and welcome to my guide on how to use Ciri. This is a new segment I'm starting where I go in detail over a specific card's proper usage, its strength, its weaknesses, what decks it's generally good to run it in, what decks it's good against, and how or when to use it effectively. Now, Ciri, as we all know, is a 5 strength gold card, wherein when you lose the round, if it's on the board, she returns to your hand. So let's get into the best application for Ciri. Ciri is best used very early in round 1, typically, or sometimes several turns into round 1. But the idea is that you want to play her as early as possible to put pressure on the opponent and force them to pass. Now, it might seem very intuitive to play Ciri later on in the round. For example, maybe when the round is kind of starting to be decided and you want to bleed someone out. The problem is that she's a very low tempo play, committedly so, to the point where oftentimes if you wait too long and you use her when the opponent has too much of a lead, you're not going to force an extra card out by using her then, because let's say you play her when they're 25 points up, they might be inclined to just pass, and then you're just wasting the card advantage you're getting back by giving them the first opportunity to pass. So you don't really gain value out of using her once the outcome of the round is already decided in terms of who wins. The true value Ciri gives you is when you play her early and she puts pressure on the opponent. Now, that means that basically you play her early and maybe force some tempo to the degree where your opponent has no great options, right? If you put some tempo on the board, you will either force the opponent out of the round, and if they can't keep up with you, they will be committing, if they stay in the round, to be willing to go 2 cards down to take the round, which is definitely not a position they want to be in. Basically, the way to understand this card is basically Ciri, when you play her, it says to the opponent, get ahead of my score at the end of each of your turns for the rest of the round, or be willing to go 2 cards down, right? That's her power. She puts that pressure on the opponent. She forces them to try to get ahead of you in the same way that one of the silver spies does, except of course she generates something like 15 more tempo than those spies because they are negative 10-point plays thereabouts. So this is exactly why Ciri has such innate synergy with high tempo plays, because basically you play a lot of tempo, which is to say you play a lot of points in a very small span of turns, which is an opener such as maybe like Calvite into something high tempo. Roach is always a good example because it gives you tempo for free. Play a lot of tempo in conjunction with Ciri to the point where they can't actually get ahead of your score. And this gives them one of 2 options. They keep playing into the round and commit for the possibility, or even almost certainty, of being forced 2 cards down to win round 1, or you force them out of round 1 very, very quickly, and you only have to go 1 card down to do it. Both of these options are, of course, very powerful for you. Basically, you can think of her effect as rewarding you for playing her, for playing high tempo plays, and punishing the opponent at the same time for playing low tempo plays, i.e. not being able to keep up with you. Let's have a look at a great demonstration I have for you guys showing off this concept I'm explaining. So this is a clip from the One Night in Novigrad tournament, a show match between the Gwent and a French community, and as you can see, Trippy Worm has lost the coin flip and is forced to go first. But he elects to play a very, very high tempo play with the Isengrim into Moran into Roach opener, and he has the Ciri in hand as a backup as well. Now obviously losing the coin flip is a bit of, well, it's a major downside. It forces you to play proactively, it limits your option, but as you can see from this play, the huge tempo of Isengrim into Moran with Roach on top of that, followed up by the Ciri, puts an astounding amount of pressure to Gum. If you look at the situation he's in, Gum has to make that choice. You have to either play 22 points in a single play, which is of course impossible in this scenario outside of Tibor, which kind of doesn't count because it gives the opponent card advantage anyway. 22 points in a single play, or concede to either get out of the round now, giving up the round 1 card down, or 1 card up in his case, or possibly playing deeper and letting Trippy Worm have the option to pass and force an extra card out of him, at which point Trippy will be 2 points up. A fantastic play in terms of being able to turn the disadvantage of losing the coin flip around on Gum Gum and to be able to apply that pressure. Let's go ahead and see how this plays out. So Gum Gum elects to play the Calvite. He's playing some high tempo, playing more emissaries, and he's going to play another Imperial Brigade here. Now you'll note what I said earlier about Ciri specifically punishing low tempo plays, and you can see that's exactly what happened in turn 1. You'll remember in turn 1, Gum Gum actually played emissary into Imperial Brigade. Imperial Brigades are very powerful cards. They give you a lot of points over time, but it comes out at only a 6-point play to start, which is of course very slow. Now Trippy gets that pass off, and Gum Gum will have to go a second card down here, which will of course allow Trippy to have 2 cards up as he's getting the Ciri dash back. Well, not Ciri dash, I mean vanilla Ciri. But anyway, this stands as a great example of how you should be looking to use Ciri and what her role in these decks are. In terms, however, of which decks you should be looking to put her in, or how to know whether Ciri is right for your deck, there are actually a plethora of requirements you should be checking. There are actually 5. So the first of which is, of course, decks that have those high tempo options, right? Decks that are able to put out a large amount of tempo very, very quickly. Now, the second of which is that they are able or don't mind to give up round 1. Now, don't get me wrong, basically every deck wants to win round 1, but certain decks will absolutely play for or need to win round 1, and Ciri is effectively disqualified from seeing value in those decks. Bonus points in addition to that, if the deck you're trying to run her in likes card advantage. That's number 3. Number 4 in terms of what you should be looking for to put her in a deck is that the deck can't have too many cards to already mulligan away. And most competitive Northern Realms decks are infamous for this, because they often run Temerian Infantrymen, Blue Stripes Commandos, and Witchers right now. Although, of course, there are Northern Realms decks that don't run these. But if you are running too many cards that you need to be mulliganing away, imagine you give up round 1, you've got the Ciri, but if you draw into a card that you need to mulligan it away anyway, you're not going to have the mulligan available to be used for Ciri, and that's really, really going to detract from her value. And the 5th requirement for being able to put her in a deck is it can't thin a ridiculous amount. Now, there are certain decks, for example, Ciri Dash decks, that try to draw through their entire decks, and a couple Nilfgaard decks do this, as well as maybe like Discard Skellige, although that might be exempt if you have some synergy with Johnny or something weird like that. But any deck that tries to draw itself to 0 cards won't really be able to use this card as effectively or reliably, because you will be, of course, mulliganing it away in round 2 or whatever, but if it remains to be the last card in your deck or whatever, then you might have to draw it back, and that can create awkward problems. So in terms of the bottom line for the decks best to put Ciri in, you're basically looking for Nilfgaard and Scoia'tael. Those are the archetypes, or factions rather, that can best support her kind of tempo requirements, while at the same time not getting in the way of any other of her kind of awkwardnesses that other decks might run into when they try to run her. That being said, she is absolutely runnable outside of these factions. These are just the best examples for her. And there you have it. That was my relatively quick guide on how to use Ciri. Be sure to let me know in the comments section if there are any other cards that you guys would like to see done in these segments, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.